This podcast is brought to you by the North Dakota Petroleum Foundation. From heating our homes and powering our vehicles to cell phones, clothing, and medical equipment, oil and natural gas makes everyday life better. North Dakota Oil and Natural Gas, advancing the possibilities. Learn more at ndpetroleumfoundation.org. Welcome to Plain Talk Live. I'm Rob Port. Exciting news for the state of North Dakota this week. Where a deal has been, I should say, plans have been announced for what's called a hydrogen hub for the state of North Dakota. The partnership is between first of all, one is a very recognizable name, Mitsubishi Power. The other is Bakken Energy, formerly known as Bakken Midstream Natural Gas. And the plan is to build what's called I have to catch up because, listen, I'm learning about a lot of this as it goes too. It's a blue hydrogen plant. Now, this is distinct from green hydrogen. Green hydrogen is made from water. Blue hydrogen is made from natural gas. Now, they're going to build the hub, and having the hub in North Dakota means that hydrogen power, which is burn, it's a clean energy source, it's going to burn without producing carbon, is going to be available for all the other stuff, all the other cool stuff that we can do in the state of North Dakota, manufacturing, other types of commercial and industrial endeavors. This is big news for a couple of reasons. First of all, our governor, Doug Burgum, has set a goal for the state of North Dakota to be carbon neutral by 2030. Well, this helps us get there. Also, this is going to, because this is being made from natural gas, North Dakota produces a hell of a lot of natural gas. We produce more natural gas than we know what to do with. And one of the big hurdles that we've been struggling with the Bakken oil fields is that our natural gas is produced as a byproduct of oil exploration. And so a lot of that natural gas, that excess natural gas, has been getting flared off, which is not a good thing. It's not something that any of us wants. It's a waste of a perfectly good resource. Well, here is something that could use that resource in North Dakota. And the other cool thing is that this plant is going to make use of carbon storage technology. Now, that's another big push here in North Dakota, where we are wanting to develop a carbon storage industry in our state. Our geology is right for it. We have the right industries here that can support it. We have a political environment that's supportive of it. This is something that can really help get that endeavor off the ground as well. Now, here to talk with me about all of that fun stuff is Mike Hopkins. He is the CEO of Bakken Energy. And Mike, first of all, did I get any of that wrong? Because I think for a lot of us, we're looking at this from the outside in and we're trying. I think it's fair to say this is an emerging thing. I mean, this is an emerging technology. We're doing some new cool stuff here, and I think a lot of us are trying to catch up with you guys.
I thought you nailed it, Rob. And firstly, let me say, pleasure to be on your show. People have told me that this is a really great gig to get, so I'm pleased to be here with you. And next thing I'd say is you shouldn't be shy, and nobody should be shy if they're in the mode of learning about hydrogen. Now, hydrogen is hydrogen, just regular hydrogen, which is made from natural gas without carbon capture. That's been around forever. It's used for petroleum refining, used to treat metals, used for food processing, used for fertilizer. Been around a long time, and is, maybe a lot of people don't know about it, but it's been around a long time. What we're talking about, clean hydrogen. You mentioned green hydrogen, you mentioned blue hydrogen, that zero or low carbon hydrogen, and the idea that this could literally be a fuel of the future, not just for refining, not just for food processing, but something that you could see being used for large scale trucking, for trains, for shipping, potentially even cars, aviation. This is a new thing. It's also a new thing that, in the case of green hydrogen, the idea that you could take excess solar, excess wind, which that always comes with the territory. When you get into making solar energy and you're into wind energy, it can be good. It can also be wasted. It almost always does end up getting wasted because it doesn't coincide with the demand. But hydrogen is a means by which you might store it. So you can think of this new world of clean hydrogen as potentially an incredible long duration means of storing renewable energy. You can also think of it, as you mentioned, a carbon-free fuel to be used for anything that you might use fuel for. And so, yeah, I think we're all in the learning mode here about what are all the things you could do with this wonderful resource. In terms of our project here, what we're wanting to do is to make clean hydrogen, in this case blue hydrogen, much more accessible. I think part of the world of clean hydrogen has been lots of talk, lots of good ideas, but in the case of green, which is what most people talk about, Rob, you're talking about something that's very, very expensive at this time. The new Secretary of Energy, Jennifer Granholm, just came out this week saying we need to do she called it a hydrogen shot. So the DOE is all about energy earth shots, like the old moonshot. Like, what do we want to do that's incredibly difficult to do, but incredibly beneficial? And the very first thing they said was hydrogen. We want to see the cost of all clean hydrogen come way down, including the most expensive clean hydrogen, green. She wanted to see it come way down from what it is. We're focused on blue because, well, for a few reasons, and you've touched on them. Blue hydrogen is made from natural gas, but to qualify as blue, you have to do carbon capture. And once you've captured it, you've got to sequester it. North Dakota has some amazing attributes, inherent attributes, when you're talking about blue hydrogen. Obviously, the natural gas. It's a byproduct of oil, and it's abundant, so very low cost. You also happen to have perfect geology when it comes to storing underground either liquids or gases. One thing to do blue hydrogen that you'll have to do in large scale is you'll have to sequester, put underground CO2. You can do that in North Dakota. That's a big part of Governor Burgum's plans for meeting the 2030 target of net zero, is really taking advantage of the massive CO2 storage capability of North Dakota. The other thing that you want to be able to do is store hydrogen. When you produce hydrogen in large scale, you're not going to be consuming it instantaneously at the location that you produce it. You want to be able to store it. Again, you have these natural storage facilities, especially salt formations, that lend themselves to a perfectly sealed storage cavern for something like clean hydrogen. So, big picture, I think North Dakota has the fundamentals to turn itself into a blue hydrogen, call it clean hydrogen powerhouse, literally a leader in the country. How do you actually get that started? That's what we're focused on as Bakken Energy. We're working with Basin, we're working with Mitsubishi on a real potential project, which is the Dakota Gasification Project, the Great Plains Synfuels plant, and looking at taking what's there, which obviously was not designed to be a blue hydrogen facility, was designed for something entirely different, and I'll say reimagining it as, what if you took advantage of what is there and then brought in the natural gas that we talked about, took advantage of the storage capabilities, and we think there may be something very special there in terms of a large scale, as in the very largest scale in North America, blue hydrogen production facility. That's one side of the equation, Rob. The other side of the equation is I'd say the most exciting, but it has the most risk, the most amount of things we need to work through. What do you do with all that blue hydrogen? It's a big, big amount. So I think we're well down the track in saying this is how you make a very large volume. Like, not just, we have the potential. I mean, this is literally how we can produce large scale blue hydrogen. And now we're into the phase of how do we get the most value for North Dakota? Because our partner Mitsubishi, as you may or may not know, Rob, is part of why we're working with them, is they're developing a transportation network to connect different hubs, including North Dakota, so that we can kind of plug into that and move our blue hydrogen around to various places where there's demand for it. That's a great solution, but that's not a solution for the next couple of years. That's a solution for longer term. Shorter term, because we can bring this hydrogen online soon, perhaps in the next 2 to 3 years, we need to have good uses for it here. And so that's that's a key part of this project that we're working on with Basin and Mitsubishi.
Let's back up a little bit. What has changed that has made, because you talked about hydrogen as being a technology that's been around for a while and it's been used in fair to say maybe some niche applications.
Yeah.
What's changed that's made it now applicable for more larger scale use.
I think there's two major factors that have changed how people look at clean hydrogen, the idea of low carbon, zero carbon hydrogen. One's very simple, and that is the technologies that you would use to produce either green hydrogen or blue hydrogen have come down. Not saying it's cheap yet, but they have come down. So it's more affordable. That's one factor. I think the bigger factor, and that this one's a little more complicated, but I believe this is the real driver, is those of us, and I'll put myself in this camp. My background is, although originally traditional oil and gas, it has been in more recent decades, clean tech. Those of us who are in the renewable energy world and the energy storage world, and therefore, generally speaking, kind of bought into climate change goals, those of us in that camp, and that obviously is the current federal administration, I think have come to the consensus that as fast as you've seen renewables develop and as fast as you've seen energy storage develop, it's actually not fast enough and it's not big enough to decarbonize on the scale and at the rate that you would need to if you are going to have these zero carbon, net zero goals. It just doesn't get there. You can have the rosiest projection you want about solar coming on, wind coming on, batteries becoming cheap as you want to imagine. It just physically, practically doesn't get you there quick enough. That has people in that world, the renewables, the storage world, and policymakers, most importantly, looking at then how do you do it? Like it doesn't get there by just more and more and more of the same. It doesn't work. You need other ways of doing it. And that's, I believe, what has really gotten people focused on hydrogen, because the beauty of hydrogen, apart from the fact that, yes, it's becoming directionally more affordable, this clean hydrogen, is that it has the unique ability to decarbonize things that are very difficult to decarbonize by just saying, oh, let's electrify them, which, Rob, has been I think that's the traditional call to arms of the renewable industry, is they just say electrify everything.
Which is tough, because I mean, we look at our electrical grids I look at the big push towards electric vehicles, which I think electric vehicles are cool as hell. I'm an Elon Musk fan. I'm a Tesla fan. I wish it was practical for me to own one, which is not a dig at them. It's not practical. I live in a very, very cold place. It's not real practical for me yet. I think they're going to get there. But we want to push to electric vehicles at a time when our power grid's not ready for it. Not yet. We're trying to get there. And so I think what's really interesting to North Dakota is that we produce a lot of the sort of energy that people don't like. It's not politically popular right now. We have coal, we have oil, we have natural gas. Natural gas is probably the one that's least reviled on that list. And we're saying, listen, we have all of these resources here, and there are ways that we could use them in concert with some of these other technologies to produce this energy. So some of the things that you're saying, even though you're dealing specifically with hydrogen, I think go hand in glove with a lot of what North Dakota's already doing, to where we could say, listen, we're going to have energy demand. Our energy demand is going to continue to go up, and we can do all of these things, and we can do all of these things well, and they can all work in concert. That's exciting to me.
It's exciting to me too. I agree with actually everything you just said, because I think the resources that North Dakota produces and is capable of producing are essential to the country. And any notion, that we're not going to need oil for decades or other commodities is not being realistic. I I also agree with you that, you can get a bad reputation even though you're fundamentally doing things that people need when it comes to energy. What I find, I guess, one of the things I really do like about hydrogen, and I think I heard this, Rob, from many people when we had our press conference last week, is that it's pretty fun for North Dakota to be able to talk about being the biggest producer of the thing that everybody loves. In the world of hydrogen, in the world of energy, you can't top hydrogen.
Yeah.
Like when you say we're going to be the biggest producer of hydrogen in the country, people don't say, what is that? Or why is that? Or I don't like that. Well, the immediate reaction of anybody is, wow, that's cool. So I think now you're one of the cool kids.
Well, and that's honestly, I think if everybody could just unclench on energy a little bit, I think we could probably find it. I don't like that it's become so ideological, and if I'm a Democrat, I have to support these energy sources, and if I'm a Republican, I have to support these. Knock it off. Let's just find what works, right? And anyway, there's a whole diatribe we could do on that. One thing so you're talking long term. The plan is for Mitsubishi to basically hook this hub up into an emerging hydrogen network that they have going, which is cool. But as you said, that the longer term goal. The immediate goal is how do we find uses for that here in North Dakota? What are those uses? Because most of the energy we produce in North Dakota, we're very used to exporting it. I mean, even our coal, which gets used at coal, but we have that mine-to-mouth thing set up where our coal plants are built right on top of the coal mines. But even a lot of that energy gets shipped, once it's turned into electricity, gets shipped out of state. We don't use a lot of it here. So where are you going to use the hydrogen in North Dakota?
Well, in the case of the project that we're talking about with Basin, the redevelopment, the acquisition and the redevelopment of the assets that comprise the Great Plains Synfuels plant, that presently, if I talk about like what are things that we would productively use as part of a redevelopment, it is an ammonia plant. It produces ammonia fertilizer. Today, it produces conventional ammonia fertilizer made from natural gas. The USDA is strongly encouraging, and I think wanting to provide financial support for farmers to be able to buy clean ammonia fertilizer, green or blue ammonia fertilizer. Now, that's not something farmers should have to pay more for, but to the extent that the government wants to move people to lower carbon, then they would like to see more clean ammonia. The first and most obvious use of the blue hydrogen that we would produce there would be to use the existing ammonia plant, but move it to clean ammonia, low carbon ammonia. And that would be for use local farmers in the region, but just agriculture generally. The other thing that you can do very simply, given that we have an ammonia facility there, is use ammonia as a way of transporting hydrogen more cost effectively. Hydrogen as hydrogen is expensive to move today, to transport over distance. Whether you're talking about trucking or you're talking about a pipeline, it's an expensive commodity to move because of its need for some cryogenic type refrigeration. If you convert it from clean hydrogen to clean ammonia, it's a means of actually moving it relatively much less expensive. So if we have this, what we know we will have, which is really low cost hydrogen and really low cost ammonia, we can actually, I believe, cost effectively transport it to other markets that have a demand for it. And the transportation costs will not eat away our competitive advantage because of our low production costs, because of transporting. So that's another thing we can do. One thing that my background is power, by the way. One use of hydrogen that's being heavily, let's say, promoted or encouraged, but I think it's a big positive, is to use hydrogen over time to improve the CO2 emissions of natural gas-fired generation. So we have a lot of natural gas-fired generation in the country. You do not in North Dakota, but I think it's likely that over time you will start developing your natural gas for power purposes because it will deliver you very low cost, relatively speaking, low CO2 power. But if you want to have even lower CO2 power, there is technology, and this again is Mitsubishi's there. Mitsubishi has state-of-the-art gas turbines that have the capability to blend in a percentage of hydrogen. They're doing that in Utah with Los Angeles Department of Water and Power as the utility sponsoring this project, where they're going to start with a large-scale natural gas power plant and then over time reduce the CO2 emissions by blending in hydrogen. That is something that I think we would like to do, Rob, with this project, is start using hydrogen to improve the carbon footprint of North Dakota's power, which I think is squarely in the governor's plan, fits that goal of get to net zero in 10 years. I was extremely encouraged, by the way, from what I heard from him about that target. When I first heard it, I think, honestly, I was wondering, well, how are you going to do that? And is it kind of like a nice thing to say, or is it a real plan? And based on what I heard, I'm satisfied that it's a real plan.
Yeah,
that's dead serious about it.
That's my understanding too. And in North Dakota, we don't necessarily want any of our energy to go away. We want to keep producing coal, and we feel like we can. And that's a different topic for a different show. But the carbon cap, the fact that you folks are going to come in here and you guys have some ideas for using carbon capture. I mean, I think that has implications for our other industries. Obviously, you're doing it for your ends, but we have a lot of other carbon-heavy industries here that would benefit from that capacity being developed in our state. Let me ask you this, because one thing that we've struggled with in North Dakota since statehood is it's all soil and oil, right? Those are our industries, and coal, obviously. Economic diversification is something that we've struggled with forever. And it's really hard to attract. We love our oil and we love our coal and we love our agriculture and we want to do all those things. We want to do more things though, because our state ends up being on a commodity roller coaster. When crop prices tank, we get hurt in a bad way. When oil prices tank, we get hurt in a bad way. If we're like just like with an investment strategy, if you're invested in more different ways, it's a more stable sort of investment. That's what we're looking at. And so what interests me about this is if we have hydrogen available, are we talking about the sort of thing where if I'm a company and I'm going to build a manufacturing plant, or I'm going to build a trucking company or something, and I could say, oh boy, if I headquarter in North Dakota, I'm going to have access to this hydrogen. I mean, is that the sort of thing we're talking about?
I think it is. I think economic diversification, it's an interesting thing. I'm Canadian, Robin, from Alberta specifically. And I totally relate to the idea of as a energy province, as an energy state, you want to diversify. When I was in Alberta, back in the early days of Alberta, they dealt with all the issues of just being a producer of raw commodities and exporting them, the ups and downs of the commodity cycle. And they put a lot of effort into doing value add and creating value out of their natural gas, value out of their oil, actually in Alberta. And I think we're quite successful at it. When it came to like broader diversification, they had ambitions of saying, well, we should be like Silicon Valley. We should get into this or that. And I think what Alberta learned, for what it's worth, is ideally, you should create value and try to keep value in your state and not just be an exporter of raw commodity, but you should be careful about diversification and understand, like, what are you really good at? And I think Alberta came to the conclusion the hard way that they're really good at energy, maybe not so great at other things. However, to the extent that being really great at energy attracts people that are really good at other things. Right. into your state. And I think that's what you're talking about, is if you're doing something that's really special. And I think what's special about hydrogen is there's broad interest across the country in it. Being the least cost supplier of clean hydrogen is a big attraction. And to the extent that, North Dakota may have struggled with its reputation outside of North Dakota when it comes to energy, That will not be the case if you are a major supplier, the biggest supplier of clean hydrogen. I could see trucking. I could see data centers. I could see there's a lot of look, it's an emerging thing. It goes back to the beginning of our conversation. This is all kind of new. You have a lot of people thinking, well, if it's actually available, if I can get clean hydrogen, what could I do with it? Well, a lot. And if it's a lot less expensive than you thought, that further broadens, that the trucking company that's thinking maybe my trucking fleet should be on hydrogen, but when they thought that it was going to be $4 a kilogram, maybe they were thinking, nice idea, but I can't afford it. Well, if it's more like $1 a kilogram, just as an example, maybe all of a sudden that starts making sense. So I'm excited about it. And I think if I go back to like North Dakota and what can be done here, I really could see North Dakota becoming what I would like it to become, which is a clean energy powerhouse. I get what you're saying about all forms of energy can be good, but I guess my focus is clean energy. Sure. And I put carbon capture. That is clean energy.
Yeah.
Carbon sequestration. That is clean energy. And it's tech. One opportunity I think for North Dakota is, now that I'm hearing about how serious the governor is about carbon capture and sequestration as a core part of this achieving the goal, you guys could become an innovation center when it comes to carbon capture. There's a lot going on in new carbon capture technologies. And if you guys become like you're literally the ground where it's happening, and you have great state colleges there as well, great colleges in your state.
The University of North Dakota, the Energy and Environment Research Center at the UND. I mean, we've got a lot of stuff. We have the right geology. I think we have the right industries here. And I think, but politically speaking, I mean, I don't, you're going to find hostility in North Dakota if you're coming in and you're making it sound like we're going to do this at the expense of our existing industries. And I don't think that's what anybody's talking about. You're obviously doing your thing. That's that. And I think the rest of us are looking at it and saying, yes, carbon capture is a thing that we want to develop here. This is a big deal, because that part of your deal, while great for North Dakota overall, is obviously going to help in other ways. What needs to happen? I mean, at this point, you've announced a partnership, you got plans for a hub, but I mean, nobody's breaking out the shovels quite yet. What needs to happen for this to become a reality?
So we are presently working with our partner Mitsubishi, going through, I'll call it the due diligence process. We've done a lot of work. We have more work to do with Basin on making sure that we fully understand the different assets that comprise the Great Plains Clean Fuels Plant. Our intention, and this is still the case, is to get through that. We believe that this should work. We're committed to making it work. We'll have to come to terms at the end of the day with Basin on the terms of an acquisition where we would take over these assets and begin to work. Our target would be to have all of that done and final and completed by the end of this year, at which time we would switch gears from planning and negotiating, and we would be then in the more of the construction phase. So the design of the redevelopment, the construction, and I think you've accurately characterized it, that we have work to do. The deal is not complete. I think what is complete in my mind is we understand what is there. We understand that plan. I know where it came from. I know why it is the way it is. And I know that it works to redevelop it. It technically works to redevelop it as a blue hydrogen facility. And it has these advantages in doing that make it, I'll say, better than what we would do if we don't do it, which would be, we would be developing greenfield from scratch blue hydrogen facilities for all the reasons we talked about earlier. North Dakota and Bakken Energy should be and will be developing blue hydrogen production in North Dakota. We just happen to believe that if we can come to terms at the end of the day with our partners and with Basin on the acquisition of this existing facility and just redeveloping it, that's the fastest, best way to move this along. So that's why we're focused on this. I'm confident that if it's, if this is, when I look at it, Rob, I think this is good for everybody. This is good for the employees of that plant. This is good for Basin. This is good for us. This is good for the state.
For the communities, around
for
there.
For the communities regionally. I'm sure there must be somebody out there that thinks this is a bad idea, but I don't know why they would think it's a bad idea.
Oh, trust me, in my line of work, there's always somebody who's opposed to it. So, and I'm usually pretty good at finding them. It's such an exciting thing, and I'm such a dork because I get so excited about stuff like when the legislature passes like bonding bills, and we're gonna build sewage plants faster using our legacy fund. I get excited about that. Like, I think there's so much public policy that really matters, that matters in terms of our country being at the forefront of the cool things that we can do, of our state being prosperous and having a diverse economic sector and having a lot of opportunities for people to come here. And I mean, a historical problem for a long time, and the oil boom that came along changed that for us. I mean, our state, I don't know, I mean, completely surprising a lot of people, our state quickly went from being one of the oldest in the union to one of the youngest in the union because of the oil boom, and it created opportunity. And it turned out North Dakota is a wonderful, wonderful place. It's a wonderful place to live. It's a wonderful place to raise your kids. But for those things to happen, you got to have opportunities. And I think this is the sort of thing that excites when you have a company like Mitsubishi, which obviously has its reputation. I mean, I don't think they lend their name to a deal unless it's a good idea. A company like yours coming in, it's a big deal for us. So this is very exciting. Final thoughts to you.
Well, I share the whole team at Bakken Energy, and I think I can, in this regard, speak for Mitsubishi. We're all excited about this. We're excited broadly about the blue hydrogen potential of North Dakota. We're excited specifically about this project. I guess I'm a geek in that regard too, is that I'm excited about concepts, but at the end of the day, Rob, I want to do a real project. Like, I want to build something that actually exists.
Not just send out press releases and have politicians cutting ribbons. We want to actually do some stuff, right?
Exactly. And in my career, I have worked on the development of, it's over 54 large scale power projects. So I know the difference between talking about how cool this could be or that could be and actually getting something from design to construction to operation and looking back and saying it was good. Like, it produced energy. It was at that time clean. It created jobs. And that's what we want to do here in North Dakota. And just, excited, I think, to be part of this whole energy plan for North Dakota. And for what it's worth, happy to make part of what North Dakota is doing, I think, really cool, and something that everybody outside of North Dakota wants to talk about. That it's not the reason we're doing it, but it's a nice benefit. When I was coming into the press conference, one of my friends in North Dakota in government said, because I said, "What do you think of what we're doing?" And he said, "What's the most fun? It's talking about something we're doing in North Dakota that everybody outside of North Dakota says, that is so cool."
Right. Yeah, we don't have Silicon Valley, right? Facebook's not here. Or maybe we should be glad Facebook's not here. I should say that. That's terrible. I shouldn't say that. But we
realize you just got banned if you're on Facebook.
I just got banned. Yeah. Well, maybe that's not such a bad thing either. I guess that's right. We spend a lot of time defending it. It's frustrating for us because, again, everybody's using our oil. Everybody's using our coal. Everybody's using our wheat and all the other wonderful ag products that we export, and then we get tarred and feathered for it simultaneously. That is a frustrating thing to watch somebody driving around in their SUV and then complaining about oil production. Like, what? Have a little. But this is cool. This is a cool thing. It seems to me, I'm just a Yahoo columnist, so what do I know? But it seems to me like this is a good fit. So really looking forward to it, Mike. Thanks for your time. Appreciate it.
My pleasure.